I am your host, Mayel, and this season is all about core of cultivation and bringing up my past stories that make me who I am today. Really getting deep into that Mayel lore. So this episode is about self-confidence and just being open with the things that I once struggled with and how I became confident, what steps did I use, what mindsets did I adopt, and really just giving you insight on who I was and who I am today. So I want to start this episode off by reading my journal entry, and this is from August 11th, 2024, so it's pretty recent, allowing my younger self to speak, because I'm going to get more into this story, but when I was younger, I didn't journal, so I never gave my younger self that true outlet. You know, the 8th grade me, the younger me, this is from the perspective of her. So that line, I allowed it to grow and exist quietly, reminds me of the stage of self-confidence I reached at the very beginning. With 8th grade being the year that I had this epiphany that if I wanted to become confident, I had to cultivate it on my own terms and maintain it in my own mind. I have never experienced confidence in my own way. Instead, it was handed to me by others and snatched away by those who saw an opportunity to remove it. All right, let's pause there in the reading, but what kickstarted my self-confidence journey in 8th grade was I realized that I was getting tired of allowing people the power to dictate whether I was beautiful or not. And I was tired of having my confidence in the hands of others when all they wanted to do was harm me. If you don't know, colorism is the discrimination against a darker complexion. And for me, that was like something that I was introduced to at a very young age. My first experience of colorism was in 3rd grade. I had heard from like a younger girl, maybe like 2 years younger than me or whatever. And I wasn't close with this girl, mind you. She had told me that I wasn't allowed to go to her birthday party because I was too dark. And in that moment, it was like my first time being like, oh, people got a problem with like my skin color. I would say it didn't start having a true impact on my self-confidence until I got to middle school. And this is around the time I started to understand like self-worth and really just taking things very personally. It wasn't just one person saying it. I was preparing myself every day to hear at least 3 people say something about my skin color, because I would say in middle school, this is around the time when like the "you're so dark" jokes were just very popular. The light skin versus dark skin debates were very popular, and I was a very quiet kid. I didn't entertain many conversations. Between 6th and 7th grade, I didn't really discuss much with other people. And when you hear certain things about yourself at that young age, you start to believe them, you start to see yourself in a different light. I don't think those comments started hurting me until I would see people who I considered friends joining in on the conversation. I didn't even have enough time to develop self-worth before people started tearing it down. These comments shaped my self-worth even before I was able to understand what self-worth was. It was me just taking all these mental notes in and being like, okay, I can't do this because I'm dark skinned. I can't wear that because I'm dark skinned. I can't date that person because I'm dark skinned. I can't explore these certain choices in life because of my complexion. I was taking these things, these comments, and I was allowing them to just really shape how I viewed myself. Like there were moments that I remember just staring into the mirror and being like, how are we going to avoid summer this year? You know, how are we going to not get too dark? I went from not knowing what self-worth was to already having an idea in my head based off how other people viewed me. Let me read some more from this journal. The words insecurity and confidence were fresh to my ears in middle school. Previously in life, I just knew what the feelings were that were attached to the words. I knew certain jokes and comments about my skin color made me feel sad and confused, and I knew that certain compliments made me feel a little seen. I say a little seen because I was slowly getting introduced to a new compliment, a backhanded compliment. The ones that say, you're pretty for a dark-skinned girl, or you are pretty, but if you had a lighter skin, you would be better. Because I was experiencing these different perspectives on whether I was good enough as a dark-skinned girl, it caused a lot of inner conflict because I didn't know who was telling the truth. Was it the stranger in passing who said that I was beautiful telling the truth? Or was it the friend and classmate who saw me more regularly telling me that my skin was too dark to be attractive? With these different ideas being thrown at me, I gave myself no space to develop my own perspective and definition of beauty. And the mirror was my reflection, but I couldn't develop my own sense of self. I also didn't trust myself to even try to like what I saw when I looked at myself, because I thought that it can't possibly be up to me. What did I know about beauty? Okay, I'm gonna stop there so I can dive into my experience with backhanded compliments. And I would say this started to reign in around 8th grade, possibly either late 7th grade or early 8th grade. My very first one. But this kid had passed me a note in class. I unfolded the note and it said, "I would date you if you had a lighter complexion." I read this little note and he's sitting across from me. I read this little note so many times, and then I finally look at him and be like, "Who's this for?" And he's like, "You." I didn't know how to express, what do you want me to do now? Like, what was the point? What was the point of this? Because what am I supposed to do with it? Be like, "Oh damn, let me go home and bleach my skin real quick so you can date me." I would never understand the logic behind giving someone a note that says that. I remember just not knowing what to say. Is there anything to say? Like, and if I could tell my younger self one thing in that moment, I would just be like, "Girl, buckle up, because you're about to hear so many other things, but I want you to remain strong and understand your own self-worth." I remember a friend's family member telling her the next day when we got to school to tell me that I am so pretty for a dark-skinned girl. What is it that is drawing people to allowing a compliment to come out of their mouths, but then also saying, "But the way that you are is not beautiful. You came out magically beautiful," which is unheard of because you're dark skinned. I began searching on YouTube because YouTube was the only social media that I was on in middle school. And I remember searching on YouTube how to be confident. And when I searched those words, I kid you not, there were so many people who did not look like me talking about the topic. And I didn't feel a connection when I was watching white girls talk about how to gain confidence, because they weren't going through the discrimination that I was going through. And so I felt like their tips just weren't resonating with me, or like their story just wasn't resonating with me enough. I began searching how to be confident as a dark-skinned girl. In 2012, I had such a hard time finding dark-skinned girls, dark-skinned women talking about confidence. I was like, I need to find a black woman, a dark-skinned woman that is sharing her story, telling me how to be confident, because I can trust her. She knows what I've been through, and I could not find that. And I said, you know what? Just give me a black girl. She can be light skinned. I don't care. Just give me a black woman. So I finally come across a video. The video was from a woman named Honey Darche. Shout out to her. I owe my self-confidence journey to that video. I really don't remember all that she mentioned in this video, but I just remember feeling seen and feeling heard and feeling like I can trust this woman because there is something that is connecting us, and that is being black. One of the things that she advised me to do was create an affirmation board. She's like, get a marker, get construction paper, and I want you to write down these affirmations. And it was, I am beautiful, I am enough. I remember it being 4 bullet points. I can't remember what the other 2 were. That was the gist of it. And I made it super pretty. I said that I want this to be somewhere that I can see it, but also somewhere that is hidden. Because in this time, I was trying to silently cultivate self-confidence. I wanted to do this in secret. So I put this paper on the back of my door, and seeing that when I wake up, seeing that whenever I close my door, seeing that, before bed, it did so much for me. It did so much for me. I read those words so often that I would be brushing my teeth, and in my mind, I'm like thinking about, I am beautiful, I am loved. Like, I'm pretty sure this is the first time I understood the power of words of affirmation. I gifted myself words of affirmation to help myself get out of this chokehold that society had on me, I was so willing to commit to silently gaining confidence just as bad as I was willing to commit to silently struggling. I kept it to myself, and I said, MiEle, this is hurting you so much. I want you to handle it. I want you to get better. I want you to start to believe. While they're saying all of these harmful things and all these mean things to me, If I so much as shed a tear, I would know that they would have won. I knew that if I wanted to gain my confidence, I needed to do it in secret, because the last thing I need is for me to be in the process of gaining confidence and somebody shut that down because they know what I'm already doing and they use that as a joke. This self-confidence journey got crazy in the most phenomenal way. But one of the highlights is maybe a year after, so around 9th grade, a year after having that poster on the back of my door, I remember my mom coming in. Something prompted her to like move my door so she saw the poster. And she was like, "Do you need to be reminded of these things?" And I could hear the concern in her voice. I could hear that she sounded so heartbroken that her daughter had been struggling with self-confidence, with feeling loved or whatever. But at that time, I didn't need to be reminded anymore because it was already embedded in my self-belief. Barely looked at that poster. The only time I looked at it was for nostalgic reasons, like, dang, a year ago I made that. I remember telling her, I just like it because it looks pretty. I got to a point in my self-confidence journey where the poster that I desperately needed to remind me of these things was now serving as decoration on the back of my door, because I didn't have to rely on it as much because I already believed these things about myself. And so I want to go into the other part of this journal. I watched movies and shows that portrayed dark-skinned girls in a way that couldn't foster confidence in those that looked like them. Music videos were not allowing the presence of a dark-skinned girl to be seen as the one people chose to love. The more I looked outside of myself for answers on beauty, the more society provided answers of beauty outside of me. This line right here in my journal, my younger self, she found her words. I got to a point where I knew that trying to ask other people how they felt about my beauty, trying to look outside of myself, had only reinforced ideas that I was not beautiful. So I understood that I had to go within my own belief. I had to figure out my own definition of beauty, and I had to allow myself to create a definition that includes me. And I would say going to school and silently working on my confidence, it definitely felt like I was constantly being trained on my self-worth and trained on my new belief system. In high school, my confidence really started to show. I became more willing to stick up for myself. I was either able to drown people out or I was able to stick up for myself. One of my iconic moments in high school, I think it was 11th grade. This guy tried to say something about my skin being dark. I don't even remember what he said, but let me tell you, I remember what I said. You can't even make me feel bad about my dark skin because I love it now. People cannot use something against you when it is no longer an insecurity. I was becoming way more verbally powerful. The wild situation to be in is when your friends chiming into conversations like this. This is how the conversation basically went. Oh, the sun loves MiEleBooker too much. Like, yeah, she would be cute if she was this color. And I'm like, or maybe I'm perfectly fine the way that I am. People that I consider friends also said things to hurt me just for the sake of uplifting themselves. And I can gladly say that I had never got to a point in my self-confidence journey where I was like, okay, in order for me to feel beautiful about myself, I need to put somebody down. Although I wasn't perfectly confident at that time, I was a lot more confident than when I first started my self-confidence journey. I was still showing up and I was smiling and I was expressing myself. So I really just want to highlight the fact that a self-confidence journey is not something that you do for a couple of years and you're perfectly confident. Things are going to come up, insecurities are going to come up, and you just have to understand that you have the tools to unpack insecurities you have and see the beauty in them.